Today's lesson we're looking at 4.2b, determine slope and y-intercept from a table. And our goal for this lesson is to review finding slope and learn to find the y-intercept from a table. Now we've already gone over finding slope from a table back in Module 3, Lesson 2C. So if you need to go back and review further than what I'm going to be doing with you guys for this lesson, feel free to do so. Again, 3.2C is where you can go back to review finding slope from a table. We're going to review finding slope from a table real quick, and then we're going to learn to find the y-intercept from a table. Then we've got a couple other things to do real quickly after that. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples on how to find slope from a table. Now before we get to some examples, just a quick review on the formula for slope. Our formula slope for a table is going to be m is equal to delta y over delta x. So we're looking to find out how much the y values goes up or down by to get from one number to the next, and the x values, how much do they go up by to get from one number to the next. Alright, so we'll take a look at a couple examples using this formula. For our first example, we have a table where our x values are -2, 0, 2, and 4. Our y values are -4, -1, 2, and 5. So our first goal here is to determine the change in delta, the change in y and the change in x. Just because y is on the bottom of the table, that does not mean it goes on the bottom of the fraction. Delta y actually goes in the numerator, while our change in x goes in the denominator. So if we look at our x values, to go from -2 to 0, we add 2. To go from 0 to +2, we're adding 2 again. And to go from 2 to 4, we add 2 one more time. So our value for delta x is going to equal +2. Alright, then for delta y, we see that to go from -4 to -1, we add 3. To go from -1 to 2, we add 3 again. And to go from 2 to 5, we add 3 one more time. So therefore, our delta y is going to be equal to +3. Now keeping in mind, our formula for slope is going to be m is equal to delta y over delta x. So it's going to equal 3 over 2. Okay, so again, just a quick review on how to find our slope from a table with that first example. Let's look at another one. Alright, so now for a second example, we have another table that I made up. Our x values are -1, 0, 1, and 2, and our y values are 5, 1, -3, and -7. So for our delta y and delta x, first delta x, we're going up by 1 each time. And for delta y, we're subtracting 4 each time. Alright, so therefore, delta x is equal to +1. Delta y is equal to -4. So our slope is going to be -4 over 1. Or, if you don't want to write it as a fraction, or if my-HRW is looking for a number that can't be entered as a fraction, you can just have m is equal to -4. Okay? A couple examples down. Let's look at 2 more. For our third example, we can see that the x values, we're going up by 3 each time. So we have +3, +3, +3. And our y values, we can see that those are going up by 4 each time. +4, +4, +4. So our value for delta x equals +3. Our value for delta y equals +4. So our slope, therefore, is going to be 4 over 3. One more example to go through. For our last example, we have x values of -6, -2, 2, and 6, and y values of 5, 7, 9, and 11. So searching for the change in x, or delta x value, we should see that all the x values were going up by 4 to get from one value to the next. So we keep on adding 4. And then for the y values, when we look at those, we should see that we're going up by 2 each time. So again, delta x is equal to plus 4. Delta y is equal to plus 2. Our slope, therefore, is going to be equal to 2 over 4. If we can simplify it, we should. So our slope then is m is equal to 1/2. That's supposed to be a half. Alright, so m is equal to 1/2. So again, just a quick review there on how to find slope from a table. Alright, so now we need to talk about how we can actually find the y-intercept of a table. And there's two methods that we can use for this. The first method is the easiest. There's no math. All you have to do is observe the table a little bit. Unfortunately, it does not work for every single table. The second method will work for every single table, but there's a little bit of math that we have to do for those. Alright, so for our first method, we want to look for the y value below the x value that is equal to 0. Okay, so look for the y value below the x value that is equal to 0. Let's go back to our first two examples to see what this is going to look like. Alright, so for example 1, again for our x row, we have values -2, 0, 2, and 4. Y values -4, -1, 2, and 5. So what we're looking for is this x value that is equal to 0. The number below that, the y value directly below that, that is our value for the y-intercept. Okay, so we're looking right here. That's where we're going to find our value for our y-intercept, our value for b. Remember from our lesson yesterday, we used the letter b to represent our y-intercept. So from this table, b is going to equal -1. Okay, that's it. That's all we need to do. We just need to be able to observe in the table where the x value is 0, the y value below that is going to be our y-intercept, and it's just that simple. Let's take a look at our example 2. We again see our value 0 in our table, so the number directly below that, that is going to be our y-intercept. So again, we're looking right here. When x is 0, the y value is going to be our y-intercept. So in this case, b equals 1. Okay, and that's all that we have to do for that problem. Alright, so that's the first method. And again, we can only use that method when we're able to observe when x is equal to 0. If we have a table where we can't observe x equaling 0, then we have to figure out a different method. So let's talk about what that second method is and then look at the last two examples. Alright, so our second method of finding the y-intercept of a table, and again, this will work with every single table that we have. Even the ones where we're given the x value for 0, this will work for those tables as well. It's a little bit of math, but it's really not that bad. What we need to do is we need to choose the values from any ordered pair along with the value for the slope. So from our ordered pair, we have an x value and we have a y value, and then our slope gives us our third value that we need. We're going to substitute those three values into y equals mx plus b and solve for b. Let's go back to examples 3 and 4 and take a look at how we can do this. Alright, so for example 3, again we have x values 3, 6, 9, and 12, y values of 11, 15, 19, and 23, and a slope equal to 4/3. So we need to choose one ordered pair and remember the value for the slope. Unfortunately, guys, I ran out of space, so I can't scroll down anymore, so I'm going to have to flip back to the second page to show you the work. But I'm going to just show you the values that we're going to be using. So you can choose, in this table we have 4 ordered pairs, and you can choose any one of those 4 ordered pairs that you want. If it were me, and since I'm doing the example it is me, for me, I would choose numbers that are positive and small. So in this table, 3, 11 is the ordered pair I would choose because it has the smallest numbers. So I would choose 3, 0, 3, 11 as my ordered pair. And then for my slope, I must use m is equal to 4/3. So I'm going to take this information and write it back on the second page so that we have it in front of us to use. Alright, so again, the point we're using is 3,11, and the slope is 4/3. I'm actually going to move that next to the point. With this information, we have all that we need in order to substitute our values into y equals mx plus b and solve for b to find the y-intercept. It's important to remember that for x, we're going to be using the value 3, and for y, we're going to be using the value 11. So let me rewrite the formula. So y equals mx plus b. Now I'm going to take my value for y and substitute in 11. My value for m, I'm going to substitute in 4/3. My value for x, I'm going to substitute in 3. And then I'm also going to bring down the plus b. So here's what that will look like. Alright, so we have 11 is equal to 4/3 times 3 plus b. Again, all I've done is I've substituted in 11 in for y, because 11 is the y value. I substituted 4/3 in for m, because those two are equal. I substituted 3 in for x, again because 3 is the x value, and then brought down the plus b. Now we need to do a little bit of math, and if I remember back to multiplying fractions by whole numbers, this can go over 1, and these can cancel. So I end up with 11 is equal to 4 plus b. Subtract 4 from both sides. These cancel, and we get b equals 7. So our y-intercept for this problem will be 7. And that's all the math that we need to do in order to figure out our y-intercept. Okay? So for example 3, our value for b is going to equal 7. If you're in any way confused about how I got that value for b equals 7, rewind it a little bit, rewatch the work that I did so that you can get a better grasp on what I did. But let's go ahead and take a look at example 4 to see if we can find out the y-intercept there. Back in example 4, we need to use our slope. So m is equal to 1/2. So our slope is right here. And now we need to choose one of these 4 ordered pairs as well. Again, my opinion, I prefer to work with small numbers that are positive if I can. So I would probably choose this ordered pair right here. You can choose any one of these other 3 ordered pairs if you prefer. Again, I would prefer working with smaller numbers that are positive, so I'm going to choose the ordered pair 2, 9 in my slope, where m is equal to 1/2. So just gone ahead and transfer that information over to the second page. My point again is 2, 9, and my slope is 1/2. Just to recap, our 2 is going to be our value for x, and our 9 is going to be our value for y. So we go back to our formula, y equals mx plus b. And I want you to substitute in the 3 values where you think they should go. Substitute in the value for 2, the value for 9, and the value for 1/2. Substitute those 3 values into the formula. You don't have to solve it yet, but I just want you to substitute those in to see what you get. Go ahead and press pause. Alright, so in for y, you should have substituted the value 9. Bring down the equal sign. For m, you should have substituted in 1/2. For x, substitute in 2. And then bring down the plus b. Okay, if that's what you've got written down in your paper without any help from me, then good job. If not, again, rewatch the example 3 in this example here to see if you can get a better understanding of how you're supposed to substitute in these values. So now we go ahead and we do our math to figure out our value for b. When we look here, our first step of math has to be right here. 1/2 of 2. You really shouldn't have to think too hard about this one. Just think about what the problem is asking you. What's half of 2? If you have $2 and somebody takes half of them, you're left with $1. So we write down our equation after doing that math. Again, half of 2 is going to give me 1. I bring down the plus b. Now I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. These cancel, and I get 8 is equal to b. All right. Again, if you're unclear in any way about what I did to find our value for b, where b is equal to 8, re-watch the examples. Okay, go back through, follow step by step along with what I did in order to get our value for b. All right, for a final example, more of a real-world situation, it says a phone salesman is paid a fixed weekly salary plus a commission for each phone he sells. The table gives the amount of money he can earn based on how many phones he sells. Find the value of the weekly salary and the amount he earns for each phone he sells. All right, so the table has for 10 phones sold, he will earn $480. 20 phones will be $630. 30 phones will be $780, and 40 phones he will earn $930 in a week. So, approaching this the same way we have for other tables, we need to remember that our right column over here, that's going to be our Y column because we're dealing with money, so that's going to be our dependent variable, and then phones sold, that's going to be our independent variable or our X values. So we see that we're going up by 10 each time for the X values. For the Y values, it's a little bit more difficult to see, but we're actually going up by 150 each time here. Okay? So our slope, again, will be delta Y over delta X. Our value for delta X is 10, and our value for delta Y is 150. So we have M is equal to 150 over 10. If we simplify that, we have M is equal to 15. Okay, so 15 is our value for our rate of change. So what that tells us is that for each phone he sells, he makes an additional $15. Okay, each phone gives him an extra $15. So we still have to figure out our y-intercept for this problem. So that means we need to choose any point that we have in this table. I'm probably going to choose this point right here because it's got the smallest numbers. The number is closest to 0. So our point that we're going to use is going to be 10, 480. So we have our slope, which is 15, our point, which is 10, 80. We go back to our point slope form, y equals mx plus b, and we're going to substitute all this information into our equation. The numbers are a little bit bigger, but that doesn't matter. They still get substituted in just the exact same way they would even if the numbers were smaller. Go ahead and take a second for yourself, pause the video, and see if you can substitute the values into the formula correctly. So in place of y, we're going to use 480. Bring down the equal sign. In place of m, we're going to use 15. In place of x, we're going to use 10. And then bring down the plus b. So 480 is equal to 15 times 10 plus b. Our first step is to simplify this portion of work right here. So bring down 480 equals 15 times 10 is going to give me 150. Bring down the plus b. Now we subtract 150 from both sides to isolate b by itself. Subtract 150. These cancel. 480 minus 150, we get 0, 3, 3. So 330 is equal to b. So what this tells us about this problem, is that his weekly salary is going to be $330, and he earns an additional $15 for each phone that he sells. Okay? Now guys, with this lesson, I recognize that finding the y-intercept using the formula can be a bit confusing. If you have questions at all about that, please write them down so that you can remember to ask them in class. Take some time and re-watch those examples where I show you how to find the value for b when the x value is not given for 0 in the table. Okay? Take your time, go back through, watch how to do those. Any questions, bring them to class. And hopefully you have a better understanding of how to review finding slope and learn to find the y-intercept from a table. And if you're asked to derive the slope-intercept form of an equation on my HRW, don't even worry about that one. I'll give you guys credit for that one. It is a silly problem, so don't even worry about it.